Grant Houcks here with St. Peter's Fly Shop. Preparing for a saltwater trip is definitely one of the best parts of the journey. I wanted to take a minute and talk about some flies, as having the proper selection when you visit your destinations is very important as well. I'm going to start in the bonefish realm, and we're going to come from this side. I've got a nice little fly cake here, and just talk about a few of my favorite flies. As you'll notice on these flies, one of the big differences for bonefish and for saltwater flats flies in general is weight. So having a good selection of weight is very important. And with this grouping of flies, you'll get bead chains, you'll get large dumbbells, small dumbbells, other mixes of small dumbbells with beads. And having that selection for different depths of water is extremely important. You know, for my normally 3 to 8 foot of water, I'm going to be more in my dumbbell size. In my typically less than 3 foot of water, I'm going to be in my bead chain size. So back to the flies, bonefish flies, know that they can cross over with permit flies, but our selection and size of hooks is typically a little bit different. So on the bonefish side, one of the true classics is going to be your gotcha. This one here is in a size 6. Most of my bonefish flies for Coyote Cruise are going to be size 6 with a selection of 8 and a little bit of 4s. The next fly, and probably my favorite, is the mantis shrimp. Vivercus mantis shrimp. I believe you could have this fly in a variety of colors and sizes and weights and be pretty well suited, but it is good to have a nice selection. The next fly here we've got is going to be the carpet shrimp. That's a Rio fly. A little larger. That may be something I'd fish in deeper water. Also something you could potentially combo as a permit fly. On this side, I've got the silly legs. It's got the dumbbell eyes. So if I'm personally tying my flies, I'll oftentimes put rubber legs in there because that's something I can always trim out once I get to the flats if we decide that we don't want those. Hard to add them when you don't have them. The last fly that I'll go over that can be a crossover, and it'll transition me right into my permit flies, would be the Avalon permit fly. And although it's called an Avalon permit fly, it also works very well for bonefish. These are all shrimp patterns. One thing to think about with shrimp patterns is also how you're going to strip it. And we do have some other videos talking about it, but most shrimp are only going to move about like so. So when I'm stripping that fly, my strip is going to be typically a little shorter like so. Moving away from the shrimp flies and moving into a few of our favorite permit flies, start with the strong arm crab. This one again can be in a few different colors. This is white. In this cake, this would be my selection of colors. I'm sticking to mostly that neutral color, tans, opaques, whites, as many of the flats down in that area are that color, so I'm matching the substrate. Another tried and true is Kathy's fleeing crab. And probably my favorite is going to be the Alflexo crab. This one here, you'll notice the hook size on most of these permit flies has gone up a little bit, but this one's tied in a size 2. Again, we're primarily focusing right here on our bonefish and permit flies, so our flat species. If I'm going to widen things a little bit and talk a little bit about permit flies, a couple of the ones that I really like are going to be the tarpon toad, black and purple. That fly's also great in chartreuse. As well as the Black Death. Little larger hooks on these. Most of these are going to be 2 to 3/0 hooks. Those would be a couple of my favorite tarpon flies. And then the Midnight Mullet's another nice one as well if they're after mullets. And lastly, we have a good selection of different EP flies. So a lot of the half and halves are going to be the ones that I like to choose when selecting tarpon flies. And the last fly I want to highlight before we move on, and this is going to be kind of your general all-purpose fly, is going to be a clouser. When I'm visiting these flats, I always want to have at least a dozen clousers. These are great for mix of species like jacks, if you're going to fish for snapper or any of those type of bugs. And then I did say the last, but then one more fly that I'd like to look at here is the Cuda Killer. So barracuda are a species that I also enjoy targeting on the flats. They oftentimes show up. And so this is going to be one of our better tried and true flies for barracuda. So that's a little selection of flies for bonefish, permit, mixed species, tarpon, barracuda. And again, having a proper selection of bugs is going to be a great choice when you visit your locations. Your guides are going to appreciate that as well. I just got done stocking my box, and as you can see, I've spent many years building my collection and tying my collection. But on this side, I've got most of all my shrimp patterns, and on this side over here, I've got most all of my crab patterns. We have all of these flies here in the shop, as well as many of them online on our online store. If you need help preparing for your trip, we'd love to. So stop by and chat with us.